Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to Strategic Command, World War II, World at War. It is February of 1942. There appears to potentially be a breakthrough in southern China for the Japanese, taking Henan and now driving west with some tanks, as well as largely forcing our troops in southern China to fall back from the gates of Fuchao, while also continuing to threaten us in the north. So China is unraveling a little bit. Meanwhile, on the eastern front in Russia, the Germans have pushed as far as Rostov on the southern Sea of Azov coast, while in the north they're approaching Moscow, and our ability to hold out against them for much longer is probably in question. Our best hope is probably opening a second front against the Germans in Europe, but it seems that Italy is relatively well guarded. Based on initial scouting of the enemy, we did eliminate the Axis forces in North Africa, but the question now is, okay, so now what? We could probably get away with a landing of some kind in Sicily and maybe take Syracuse and potentially drive on Palermo, but our ability to take out Italy altogether and drive up the boot is again limited. It looks like they're building fortifications across the neck of the Italian peninsula, so in that case we'd probably want to land further north, but they still have quite a bit of troops in there. So sort of a secondary idea is trying to reopen the Strait of Gibraltar with these two American armies that are coming across the ocean right now, maybe landing at Cadiz and driving in on Gibraltar, but depending on what the Spanish have there, that may be a question as well. And then the invasion of France at this stage is, well, out of the question. With that being said, we are coming to the end of our turn, so we probably are going to go ahead and wrap this, well, not wrap this, but we're going to go ahead and look at ending the turn and letting the AI go. Trying to drive some subs off the coast there. Just doing a little bit of scouting sort of in the northern Atlantic there with my maritime troops or ships. Move the 2nd American Corps out this way toward Port Delgada. I don't believe the enemy has any recon out that way, so they shouldn't be able to detect us, I'm hoping, as we move our mechanized army out there. Pretty risky sending those big chunks of American forces out in that direction, but it is what it is. We'll take the risk. And now we'll go ahead and end the turn in February, move into March, and we'll see what happens here. The Dutch are celebrating the fall of the Dutch, or sorry, the Japanese are celebrating the fall of the Dutch East Indies. Italian morale is suffering from the fall of Tripoli, which is good for us. Mao Zedong is concerned about Japanese advances in China. Hopefully this will bring the communists into the war on our side. British commandos are raiding near Narvik in Norway. Axis raids on UK convoys between the UK and US and the Australian convoys in the UK. Bolshoi Theater performs Shostakovich's 3rd Symphony in Leningrad as the Germans approach. British are developing amphibious warfare level 1. Chinese progress on infantry weapons, I believe, level 2. British economy is a little bit better this turn. The Russians are still sucking a big portion of the British economy dry, deliberately so, in our effort to keep them in the war. Japan invades Portuguese Timor, and they take the island without Portuguese approval. Portugal is now... oh, shit. Please don't declare war yet, Portugal. You're going to get steamrolled. Well, we have that second front in Europe now. As soon as Portugal goes to war, we can land those American troops in Portugal. But that's going to be a long and that's going to be a broad front that we're going to have to deal with. I guess we could ship troops down there via transport ships, which is a far more effective method of transport. And we could open our second front in Europe that way. Okay, Japan's trying to broaden their front down near Henan. It looks like the rain may sort of help prevent large-scale Japanese bombing against us. Meanwhile, the Germans are operating some troops into Bryansk near Orel. Japanese destroyers moving along the coast of New Guinea. Japanese carriers are helping to bombard British troops on the Malay Peninsula. German subs are hitting a battleship of ours just off the coast. Armor's moving forward toward Orel. Interestingly enough, the armor didn't actually wipe out the garrison at Orel, and it ate up the attack of 2 German infantry corps and a German armored corps. Meanwhile, our airborne force there in the south just got destroyed by German armor. I don't think zones of control will allow a full-blown breakthrough. Additional Japanese attacks here in central and southern China. They'll probably break through on the southern front, to be honest. The attacks in the north are occurring in winter weather, which are not yet favoring the Germans. They split our front line there in the south near Rostov. Took that city, but they haven't really fully broken through yet. They may drive into the Caucasus, which I don't really know what that does for our economy. Like, obviously I know historically it's important. I don't know in-game if it's important. They've yet to really make a broad advance on the Moscow front yet, though. Seems like the bulk of their attacks and frontline sort of penetration have been in the north and in the south. They have a strong force near Moscow. We see 3 armored units there, but they're not yet on our front line. They've got some infantry coming up near Rizev as well. And a bunch of operations, moving units around operationally. Now, I guess what I'm hoping for is Portugal declaring war at the end of the turn, but too early for Germany, or too late for Germany to do anything about it, or Spain to do anything about it, right? So, like, let us move troops on our own. Portuguese Volunteer Expedition Corps is formed in Lisbon. Portugal's joining the Allies. Mao Zedong is concerned by Japanese advances in China. Australia's mobilizing home defense, so we get more units there. Greek partisans are disrupting supply in the Balkans. Vichy France is moving toward the Axis. Swedish convoys being interdicted by our Russian destroyers in the Baltic, I believe it is. And that's going to do it for the turn. So we lost the Southampton, the Murmansk garrison, and the 4th paratroopers were destroyed. Portugal has joined the Allies. Spain has a relatively large army. USSR gets two new garrison forces. I think we put one in Tula. Probably one in Rostov. Ooh, 1 to 6, huh? I'll take that. 1 to 4, whatever, 1 to 3. I'll take that. Nice. Okay, so we just knocked out a Italian armored unit. So we'll pull our formations around a little bit. God damn it, I was hoping I could attack that tactical bomber there near Kursk. Guess not. Well, that didn't quite work out as I had hoped. Operate that force south. Pull our armor back there. So the weather has switched from snow to rain, so it should still slow the Germans down, at least if it's muddy, but we may not get the winter benefits that we had any longer. Okay, we'll fortify these guys. Move these into those fortifications. Meanwhile, the Moscow force will reinforce there. Alright, so that probably does it for the central front. Move our heavy armor south there. It's still raining, so we can't do much with our air force there. Attack with our special forces there to do some damage against the Germans. Defensive artillery! Okay, those guys are experienced troops. Move him in there. I couldn't hit him with... I was going to say I should have hit him with air power, but I couldn't. I didn't have the weather to do it. Alright, so with the Russians, we have 524 more units. Or more points here. I'm going to focus primarily on core infantry as much as I can afford. So we just purchased a whole bunch of cores. We've got a bunch of troops coming in May of 42. A couple of units coming in April of 42. A bunch coming in May of 42. Those cores that we just bought. Alright, so that's going to be that. That's the Russian front. That was a pretty quick front. Meanwhile, Portugal is at war. We have some impressively skilled Portuguese troops here. And apparently they fall under the... Okay, so the Americans are going to land in the south. The problem is, from like a supply perspective, I don't know what they're actually going to get. We don't have any headquarters units there, so I'm assuming we're going to get punished pretty hard from a supply perspective. So just like that, I bring those troops in. Oh, shoot. I can't get our troops from the Med in there because we don't own that part of the... Because we don't own the Strait of Gibraltar, I can't bring those troops from North Africa into play. Although I suppose I could launch a attack on Spain from the other coast, from the Med coast. Meanwhile, we're having some effective anti-submarine actions here. Strategic bombers. Alright, we'll move those cruisers back. Then we'll use this aircraft carrier. Almost got it. Get it? Finish the fucker off! Got him! Nice. Good result there. Finally, we sank an enemy sub. Alright, so let's do this. Can we transport this headquarter down there? Do we actually need to go to? In theory, maybe not. We can unload at Porto. Move south there. Transport this corps here from England to Porto. Bring it to the front. I mean, I'm spending most of my money this turn as the British sending an expeditionary force down to Portugal. But hey, the Germans, this is a second front. This is a legitimate second front. Now, the thing is, with the interesting thing in here is none of these bases are points of supply. None of these say supply. Even the capital of Lisbon doesn't say supply. Alright, so we'll bring this U.S. Corps in. Then we'll bring these mechanized forces in. Nice. So I don't know what my supply is going to look like next turn, but I'm going to do whatever damage I can do right now with my U.S. forces to try and weaken Spain while these forces are relatively strong. Alright, so that pretty much does it, I think, for the British that turn. We got our troops ashore. 4 American units are ashore in Portugal. 3 British units. 2 Portuguese units. That might be more than Spain has that they can bring to bear. Cadiz, meanwhile, is open, in theory, to an advance next turn. Bombard Tangier. I'm curious if the Axis-only boxes turn allies, now that we have lost the strait. Why don't the Free French get to pull from the French income? That doesn't make sense to me. Alright, so the British again, we lose most of our money. Gonna come up the rear of the Japanese here in Malaya. So now we have these troops coming up and taking Penang. So Kota Baru is now the only supply line for these Japanese Marines in Malaya. Like, I can flood Burma with troops, I just don't really know what to do there. Meanwhile, in China... Nice. So we've cut off Henan from the enemy. Move these troops back to Canton. Reinforce these guys here. So we'll go 0 to 3 against this Japanese corps here. 0 to 3 there. Okay, we'll advance Kind of, sort of here. Pull back here. I hate the idea of a headquarter unit on the front line. I hate it. Alright, swap them. Got it! Alright, so we destroyed another Japanese corps. So actually, I can pull these guys back and move these. I can't move them north? I thought I could. Move into that zone of control. Alright, so there's another Japanese light armored unit here. So we're still doing damage to the Japanese in China. We haven't totally lost yet. We have 86 money left. Do we have enough to purchase any units? We do. Well, it looks like we can only afford a corps if we don't upgrade its infantry weapons. So I'm less interested in doing that. I can either save the money for the next turn, or I can spend the money on upgrading our fighters here in Western China. That might be worth more. It might allow us to sort of reduce the effectiveness of the Japanese Air Force in the area. So that's what I'll spend my money on there. And that kind of does it for the Chinese front. We are blocking their advance sort of in Western China here with our 4th Corps that's advanced just past Ningxia, preventing them from going around our flank. Hopefully the communists will join our side here in the next few turns and allow us to stabilize the northern front. Singapore we can't really do anything with. I foolishly spent all my money as the British again, so I've got all these Australian forces that we can't really do anything with. We can't really upgrade. They're just kind of sitting there. Go ahead and attack these Japanese destroyers off the New Guinea coast. We are doing damage to these guys. I'm wondering where the main bulk of their fleet is, though. It had been at Pearl Harbor a few turns ago, but it looks like it's mostly pulled back. So the carriers are repaired and ready for sea. Go ahead and repair our battleships here. Move some of our cruisers and destroyers into position. Reinforce those guys. And so we're rebuilding the Pacific Fleet that was so badly damaged. We also got a new battleship that arrived, so we'll send it to Pearl. Level 2 battleship. We still have 374 income. We're going to operate these fighters into Portugal, I think. And actually, maybe the British should operate some of their... well, they can't operate their tactical bombers into Portugal, but I'm thinking maybe we should move some tactical bombers into Portugal as well. We'll move the American Atlantic Fleet into Portugal. Contact with the Spanish fleet here at Vigo. Alright. Yeah, I guess a Mediterranean landing along the eastern Spanish coast, as the Spanish are presumably going to fling almost all their troops to the west here. Maybe we could land at Valencia and drive on Madrid from the rear. The Americans are going to need to purchase some stuff as well. So we have enough money for... Do we want to go with another escort carrier? We could buy 2. Well, not quite. Yeah, we could buy 2. Or we could buy 1 fleet carrier. America has level 3 tanks. So let's buy 1 of those. Or do we rather buy an infantry corps or an army? I think we'll go with level 3 tanks. Actually, we need a headquarters unit, really, but I don't have the money for it. Apparently we have 3. We have 1 in Australia. We have 1 Where are our 3 headquarters? One's in Australia. One technically might be in China. I don't know. I think... I don't know if the marine tanks make a difference. You know, let's hold off on doing anything with our American money there for a turn. For diplomacy, I want to try and work on the Vichy French to stay out of it. They're at 56% for the Axis. It'll cost 50 MPPs. I can basically empty all... Well, here's the thing, though, is the Vichy might just automatically go to the enemy side, and I don't want to waste money doing that. It might be better to spend money on Turkey. Argentina could join the war, but they wouldn't do much for the war effort. Oh, here's the other risk of the fact that, like, okay, we've been successful in North Africa, but it wouldn't take much for Tunisia to also join the war against us. We'll spend 100 American points on Turkey. And we'll save the rest of our money for next turn, I think. Can we go after the enemy interceptors? No, not effectively, apparently. Okay, so that was our sort of big push. We have our second front in Europe. We have a lot of troops ashore here, but we don't have an American headquarters unit. That may come back to bite us. The British headquarter unit should help. But I don't think British supplies will go to American units, which is the confusing piece to me is just how the supplies work, because headquarters only support their nation, I believe. I could be wrong. But it'd be great to advance on Madrid, take out Madrid, Burgos, liberate Gibraltar, open a second front. Even if the Vichy come in, then we could form a new front here in southern France and begin a cheap invasion of France from the south, and maybe pull some German troops back. I mean, heck, the fact that we landed the troops that we did in the strength that we did, maybe the Germans will pull back from Russia. Not pull back, but at least slow their advance on Russia as is just because of that. Alright, so we just nearly destroyed an Italian infantry unit. We destroyed an Italian armored unit in the south as well. So if we take a look at the actual reports in terms of national morale, the American morale is at 92%, the British is at 92%, the Russians are at 82%. Germany's doing well at 113%, and Japan is at 92%, but they've had a pretty decent spike since the declaration of war against the Americans because they've taken all those Pacific islands. But the Italians are all the way down to 52%. If they hit 0, they surrender. There are other criteria that can cause them to surrender as well. Germany, meanwhile, has 114 land units. Japan has 68. Between the two, the force disparity on land combat units, between the Germans and the Japanese, there are 182 ground units. Britain has 43, Russia has 36, the US has 11. We are massively outnumbered here. China has 20. India has 8. So 28, 54, 65, 108 to more than 120. And that's not even counting the 16 Italian units. Air power things are a little bit more even. The Germans have 19, the Japanese have 12 for a total of 31. Italy also has 3, so 34. Well, maybe not more even. Britain has 10. The U.S. has 2, I think. 12, 17, 18. Naval forces are really the only area that we hold an edge. We've got 19 American naval units, 31 British for a total of 50. The Russians have 3. Germany has 19, mostly subs, I think. Japan has 20. Well, Italy only has 2 left. But yeah, that's the situation right now in our war as we're into the early spring of 1942. The movement of Portugal into the war may have inadvertently helped our cause in diverting substantial enemy forces, because I'm sure, I mean, with the 3 British units, the 4 American ground units, and 1 air unit, so the 5 American units, the 3 British units, and the 2 Portuguese units, that probably gives us more strength than the entire Spanish military. Spain doesn't show up on these lists. They're kind of grouped in with Germany, I believe it is. If we go to losses, if we go to detailed, nope, they still don't show up there. So I'm not sure exactly what Spain has, but I don't believe they've got 10 units. They've got sort of these 4 ground units that we can see, plus the 1 headquarter unit. They've got the 1 air unit. Maybe they've got 2 more. 1 in Madrid, 1 in Burgos. I'm not really sure. They do have the Corps in Tangier, but that is in Tangier, and that's really of no benefit to them. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. I hope you're continuing to enjoy the series. Please let me know your thoughts, as always. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying, once again, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I'm out. As I try and finish off this Italian sub. By the way, our anti-submarine warfare missions, we're seeing a lot more success here now. Damn sub diving from attack. Man, could we sink our 2nd sub this turn? That'd be pretty great. Got it! Nice! That's a great way to end. Carriers are so damn good at anti-submarine warfare in this game. So now, actually, I know I already said my goodbyes, but Italy's navy's now down to 1 warship. And in terms of if we go back to graphs and we go to MPPs and we go to Italy, once again they have lost more money than they have collected. Although that's the first time they've done that in a few turns now. But that'll be a nice loss for them. Germany's income keeps creeping up. US's income continues to go up. I don't know if like new allies count for them or not. Britain's income is sliding. Their losses are mounting. The Soviet losses the last few turns since the winter began have actually been less than their collected income. So that's good. But yeah. So that's going to do it for this episode. Hope you guys are continuing to enjoy the series. And as I already said, until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I'm out.